Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day, and thanks for joining us as we continue to celebrate the people all across this great state that are working so hard in the trenches to make this state a better place to live, work, and play. Hey, in just a second, we're going to come to my friend Sally Doty, who's the director of the Mississippi Office of Broadband Expansion and Accessibility. It's a really important conversation, the role that broadband is playing. And I think it's one of the most significant economic development things we can do in terms of the future. And we'll talk about the latest there and all of that. I want to give you a quick update before we get started. If you're not listening or watching my outdoor show that is on Monday at lunchtime, SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews, I really want to encourage you to listen. And listen, whether you love to hunt or fish or just enjoy the outdoors, or maybe you don't enjoy being in the outdoors at all. Maybe you don't, but maybe you enjoy the economy. Maybe the outdoors economy is important to you. And trust me, it's important to a lot of people across this great state. 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas, but you don't have to live in a rural area to appreciate the outdoors economy. I think about when I'm up in the Mississippi Delta, I think about BB's processor and BB and Charlotte and what they bring to the outdoors economy, processing deer. I think about my friend Lee Abraham and at Honest Abe's Donuts, and what the people that he's employing and how the outdoors economy is important to him. I think about my friends at the top of the hill, some of the best hamburgers you've ever eaten. And I could go on, thousands more just like them that are benefiting from what is a $1 billion plus industry in Mississippi. And so as we focus on the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission and recent decisions that they've made or almost made, it gives people a lot of concern. So if you missed the conversation that I had with Will Primos from Primos Hunting this past Monday, I really want to encourage you to go to SuperTalk Outdoors Facebook page. You can go to the SuperTalk Mississippi YouTube page. You can go to your favorite podcast and look up SuperTalk Outdoors and just grab the most recent show that's up there. I think it's March the 11th. I think that was Monday. But go listen to what our friend Will had to say. It's really important. We've got to be more focused on this. And I have to tell you that there are a lot of discussions around the makeup of the 5-member commission. There are currently no requirements. They enjoy the outdoors and they're politically appointed. But there's been some important bills that have come up before the House committee and the Senate committee that were killed in committee that would have really created an important conversation about that. And unfortunately, those bills were killed, so we're not having that conversation. There's a lot swirling here. There's another bill that passed the House by 117 to 0. It's the public trust doctrine. Essentially, what it says is wildlife belongs to the people. It's really galvanizing. What it will do is galvanize into Mississippi law the North American wildlife model to say that wildlife belongs to people and cannot be sold. That's now in the House. The Senate Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Committee. Neil Whaley is the chairman of that committee. I've tried to communicate with him specifically about that, but he won't answer my specific questions about it. So anyway, hey, we're pre-recording the show, so maybe he will before this actually airs. And if he does, I'll give you an update on Monday's outdoor show. But this is an important bill. I've been told the lieutenant governor is aware of it. He's an avid outdoorsman. I can't imagine that he wouldn't want to proclaim that the wildlife belong to the people and cannot be sold. That's at the core of the North American wildlife model. But look, deer breeders who want to breed and sell and transport their deer, I could see where they would want to fight that. They've got a couple of lobbyists. That's what they do. That's a democratic process. But we as outdoorsmen and people who care about the outdoors community need to watch this very carefully, because wouldn't it be great to galvanize into state law that wildlife belong to the people and they cannot be bought? That is really important, and I think it would make a statement that Mississippi believes in the North American wildlife model, and that's where we need to go. The other thing that concerns me is, and I've gotten some feedback lately that this whole notion of chronic wasting disease, it's a serious problem in Mississippi. And the question you have to ask yourself in places like Benton County that have a high prevalence of CWD positives, chronic wasting disease is spreading there. What we've seen from best practices, when you get to the level that Benton County is now, and some adjoining counties are quickly getting to, you can reach the point of no return, and it can devastate older deer. Okay, so what if what's happening in Benton were to take place in the rest of the state of Mississippi? This is the important question that you have to ask yourself. Now, if you look inside the department to people like William McKinley and experts across this country, they'll tell you we better contain it because we can't. There's not a solution for stopping the spread other than containment, and there is no cure for it. Unfortunately, when a deer contracts chronic wasting disease, it is 100% fatal, 100% of the time. So it's something we've got to take serious. You can go back and listen to my conversation with Will. We go into much more detail about what has been a mixed message, so let me put it that way, as it relates to chronic wasting disease coming out of the Commission, Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission. But what I've also heard, there are some commissioners that are really doing their homework about this. We've got great leadership from Billy Munger, who is a member of that commission, and we're going to stay very much in touch with it. One of the roles of SuperTalk Outdoors is to continue to shine the light and to focus on the public process and to keep the public trust in front of all of us so that we're not letting things behind the scenes happen and we're not letting special interests change the direction of where Mississippi should go. That's all I want to say today, but the public trust doctrine is out there in front of it. A really important confirmation is about to come forward. Leonard Bentz has been reappointed by the governor, but he has not gone to the Senate Confirmation Committee yet. I think it would be a bad deal, frankly, if he were reconfirmed. You can go to the SuperTalk Outdoors Facebook page and watch all the videos you want to see about reasons why we believe that he shouldn't be reconfirmed. In addition to that, Will Primos has written a letter to the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Senate Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Committee opposing Leonard Bentz's nomination or confirmation. So we'll see. Some people tell us the goose is cooked and the confirmation is going to happen. We hope by putting the facts out there on the table, people can, our senators can make their own conclusion that it will be a serious process and it will lead to us getting someone on that commission who is a little bit more focused on the outdoor heritage of Mississippi and making decisions that our kids and our kids' kids will be proud of us that they live with. That's kind of where we are. Okay, so now let's shift gears. Sally Doty, someone I really enjoy spending time with because, as I said at the beginning of the show, broadband access is one of the single biggest exponential impacts that we could have on education, on connectability in the state that would help the state get off the bottom and start to move forward in a very positive way. And that's, in fact, what is happening. Without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Sally Doty back to the Ricky Matthews Show. Sally, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And if you need help with Neil Whaley, Senator Whaley was my desk mate when I was in the Senate. So I'll tell him he needs to give you a call. He'll take my call.
He's listen, we've exchanged some notes along the way. But I've recently, more than once, specifically asked him to tell me what his thoughts were on the public trust doctrine. And I assumed he's just busy. They
are.
So
they're on the floor right now voting. Deadline's Thursday.
I'm giving him an opportunity to get back to me, but man, this is really important. This is a $1 billion plus industry we've got to protect, and we need him as chairman of that committee to be all in. So we will see where we go from there. So listen, we've had terrific conversations in the past about broadband access and why it's important to Mississippi and the incredible moves the legislature and the governor has made and the federal government's role and these hundreds of millions of dollars of investments and what we all now know to be broadband access. But when you're telling people about why this is important, if you're just riding in an elevator with them and they say, Sally, tell me, why is broadband access so darn important? Why don't we talk so highly about it? What would you say to them?
Because our entire world really now revolves around having access to high-speed internet. And I'll use that term instead of broadband. Sometimes people don't really know what broadband is. So high-speed internet, more and more, it is used for remote work, telehealth, education. It's a necessity. It's no longer just, you need it to stream Netflix. I think the pandemic really showed and really accelerated our use of high-speed internet.
We're in a digital age, and I think everybody understands that. And with advanced artificial intelligence exponentially increasing, and the digital age, it will define humanity. When we get on the other side, we'll talk about how it touches so many different aspects of our economy. And as a former digital media CEO, believe me, I spent the final part of my career deep in understanding how this is going to impact the world, and it is very significant. And if we're not connected in Mississippi, we are well behind. That's for sure.
That's right.
When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Sally Doty. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend Sally Doty. She essentially leads Mississippi's broadband efforts, and she has a really important job. And as we were discussing when we went to the break, Mississippi's got to do this. They've got to get everybody connected because, as I was pointing out, we're in the digital age. It touches every aspect of our lives, whether it be education or healthcare or business or quality of life. I think about, Sally, I mentioned this the last time you and I were together, but at my place in the Mississippi Delta, I was amazed at the amount of fiber optic cable being laid across the Mississippi Delta. I mean, it was it's still, I'm assuming it still continues today, but it was an intense effort that cost billions of dollars. And I mean, that's what it took. That's what it took to connect Mississippians. And when we set out to do a broadband access effort, we really have left no stone unturned, haven't we?
It's been a combined effort with different funding sources, different providers. Our co-ops have been very aggressive. Other smaller providers, I can give some names around the state, have been very aggressive in their build out. And we're going to have a tremendous build out in the most difficult areas to reach with some federal funding that my office will administer. It's called the BEAD, B-E-A-D fund, and it's $1.2 billion. And that money is set aside to reach the remaining parts of the state that do not have access to high-speed internet.
It's incredible. So, so you spoke somewhat to it just then with current initiatives and progress that we're making across the state. But what we're talking about is laying the kind of a broadband infrastructure that has to be laid. We're not talking about a satellite connectivity. We're talking about fiber optic capability. Why don't you give people a sense of what's involved in that?
It's a large-scale construction project. So often people want things to move faster, and we do too. We understand the urgency of this build-out, but when you reach the most remote areas, it takes some time. First of all, we've got to determine exactly where these projects should be, and that's what our office is in the middle of right now, to make sure that this money is spent in the most appropriate way. We're not overbuilding. We are really reaching unserved areas.
And with 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas, you can really start to get your head around about why this is important. I remember Haley Barber used to tell a story after Hurricane Katrina. He told a story about an older woman that he came up across that needed a lot of help after Hurricane Katrina, and he was with the group that was providing aid. And this older woman said, I don't want any of this, but hey, let me tell you what I want you to do. I want you to, if you'll go down this dirt road right here and then turn left and then go down that dirt road about a mile, there's a family down there that really needs some help. And if you'll just bring this stuff to them, I would really appreciate it. And he told that story a lot, told about how it touched him. But there's a lot of Mississippians that live down a dirt road, isn't there?
There are a lot of Mississippians. And so we have a great resource. We have a map of our state. There's a federal broadband map that has been out there for years. And Senator Wicker often has been the one leading charge to say this map is not correct, because initially it shows that Mississippi is 100% served. And that is not the case. There may be some access to some satellite service, but that's not truly high-speed internet and what's going to be necessary to really participate in all of the opportunities that we have in the digital world. So this grant that we will be administering is for fiber, other technologies, if that works, or if there is a really high cost area to reach. But fiber is the priority. And so these are large scale construction projects, millions of dollars. You've got to get the right permits, you've got to get the easements, you've got to you got to locate where the utilities are so you don't hit the gas line or the water line. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some time, but it's happening. And it's happening.
Sally, how do you find underserved? Yeah, how do you find underserved areas? Talk to me more about that.
How do we define that?
How do you find them?
Oh, how do you find them? So when I talk about unserved and underserved areas, I am talking about numbers. I'm talking about your internet speed. So the grant programs that we work with define unserved as below 25 down and 3 up. Then underserved is between that number and 100 down and 20 up. So that place in the middle is underserved. Anything over 100 down, 20 up is considered served. Now, those numbers didn't mean a lot to me. I've repeated them so many times now, they do. But all of these speeds are listed on our broadband map that's available. If you go to our agency website, BEAM, BEAM, beam.ms.gov, you can just put in Beam, Mississippi, it'll come up. So somehow get to the Beam office and you can click on our map and it has every location in the state of Mississippi. We have used that FCC map, but we have added additional data for Mississippi so you can have more of a transparent look at what kind of service is available. You can put in your address, Ricky, you can put your address in, see what kind of service is available and what speeds are available at your house.
You know, I've always believed this as a CEO. This is certainly true. It's true really on anything you do in your life, or it's certainly going to drive what you do. But what gets measured gets done. So when you look at the map, what do you see? What do you think about?
I see areas that we've got to reach. There's some areas in the Delta. There's some areas in Central Mississippi, North Mississippi. I know exactly where these areas are. That will be our priority in the upcoming years, because it really is going to take several years to work this out. But I see opportunities out there. I see so many of our areas that have already been connected, and I see such great opportunities. We have about 160,000 unserved locations, probably 40,000 underserved. Now, some of that may change. Our office is about to run a challenge process. This is required as part of the grant program. Every state in the nation is running their own individual challenge process, and we're about to run ours for Mississippi. And it is an opportunity for a local government or a nonprofit to say, hey, the map says this, but I don't get those speeds. You know, my internet spins or is unreliable, or they tell me I've got service and I don't. So we're going to launch that challenge process probably in May. We're waiting on a final approval from the feds. We've been talking about it for quite some time, but it's coming. And we're going to do this challenge process, we hope, in May. We're working with planning and development districts and working with local governments. I've been to every supervisors conference and municipal league conference, and we've been making the rounds to make sure people understand that this is really the last chance to get our map correct before we award funding.
That's good, because you really want to know where the gap is. I mean, you can't go to where you want to go if you don't know where you are now. So doing this current process analysis, you can only do so much remotely. At some point, you got to have involvement from people who are in those areas to say, I need your help.
Exactly. I had coffee with someone this morning, and everyone I show the map to, because I'm very proud of it. I think it's a tremendous asset for Mississippi to have it in such a clear manner to understand really what kind of data we have in Mississippi. So we put the address in. He had some I think it was his grandmother's address, and it showed that he was served. And he's like, I'm not served. We don't have high-speed internet, you know? So I was like, you've got to participate in the challenge process. So this is one instance that we know this map has some errors on it. Just the way maybe the data has been reported, there may be mistakes, who, what, where, but we this is the data that we have. And this is any opportunity right now to correct that data as we move forward in this grant process. So again, I encourage everybody to look at our map, go to the BEAM office website, beam.ms.gov. You can see the map there, put your address in. You can filter that map different ways and look at all kinds of different things. It's fun to play with and look at.
So when you think about advancing broadband initiatives and the kind of effort that you just talked about, reaching underserved and areas that are not served, it is a massive collaboration. I think about, you mentioned the federal government, the state legislature had a role in this. You've got private sector partners, you've got community organizations. There's a lot of collaboration that has to happen in order to advance the ball, isn't there?
There's a tremendous amount of collaboration. So, you know, I spend my time trying to talk to everyone, and the feds have required a lot of different hoops for us to jump through as a state to get access to this funding. So my office has been dedicated to that, but we're administering a grant right now that's about to finish up, serving about 12 to 15,000 people, locations.
That's incredible. Hey, when we come back, we'll remind you about the role that the rural co-ops are playing. Huge role, but there are other partners as well. We'll get into some of that when we come back on the other side. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend Sally Doty, who is literally sort of over the broadband efforts of the state of Mississippi as it relates to all this federal money coming in and all these partnerships that are being developed. It's a very, very significant issue. And, you know, Sally, I tell you, I've had conversations with a wide range of people in economic development and education and healthcare, and others. And they all say the same thing when we start talking about broadband access in a rural state like Mississippi and how transformative it is. I mean, we're talking about exponential capabilities. And the one thing I like to think about is I'm thinking about a young person who probably comes from a poor family that's in a poor area of our state in some distant rural area. And they don't currently have the capability to connect. And it's not just about learning remotely through your school and being able to do research and all these. It's really about freeing your mind up by having access to the world. And you hear story after story after story of kids that have been enabled in this way and how they've been able to overcome their a less fortunate scenario for themselves and their families. And become incredibly successful because they had this capability. I like to think about it at that level. You know, we can talk about remote healthcare and remote learning and the role that it plays in helping maximize economic development for Mississippi. But when you get down to the individual person, the individual family, there are some amazing stories that emerge, aren't there?
There really are. And, you know, it just provides so many opportunities for individuals who may be in that remote area to really live the same type of lifestyle as those of us who live in Jackson or one of the more populous areas of the state.
It's important. When we went to break there, we're talking about electric co-ops and the role that they're playing, but you got a bunch of partners. I think the legislation that was passed in our legislature and signed into law by the governor that enabled co-ops to get into this business was really kind of revolutionary. It's perfect because they had already these relationships in these rural communities. They had the capabilities, and they've been able to build a business around it. That was a big move, but there are other partners too, aren't there?
There are, you know, C-Spire, a homegrown company here in Mississippi, AT&T, smaller companies in Mississippi, Swift Connect down on the coast or in that southwest area. There's a new company, ConnectSun, that's coming into the state. I've got these guys, homegrown company up in Coahoma County. Uplink is going to have Coahoma County totally built out shortly. Coahoma County built out.
Wow.
With everyone with access to high-speed internet. So it's just a tremendous effort. And if I left any of my folks out, I'm sorry. Let's see. There's one company that just rebranded their name, and I can't come up with it. It starts
Well,
with an A. I have to put it
you
out
can,
there.
you
But
can, it'll come to your mind. But I think the
yeah,
point that you're making, though, is that when you engage big companies and small innovative companies and
yeah,
all these folks who really get what the opportunity looks like to provide broadband internet access to as many Mississippians as possible. When you look at something like Kahoma, the point that you just made, best practices emerge. And when you have best practices, you can hold them up as an example to other counties and say, look, I know that you may be struggling with this, and there may be some challenges with competition and whatever, but let's look at what's happening in a place like Kahoma.
sure.
And let's match that. Let's match that all across the state of Mississippi.
And they are hiring local people to do that work. People they know, people they go to church with, people they're in the grocery store with. Friends at Tech Info over in the Delta, same thing. I think they told me they'd hired 15 people over the last year. So, it's an incredible opportunity to increase our workforce here in Mississippi. We are going to have a tremendous amount of build out over the next 5 years, in addition to what's already going on. So if you are looking for a career, I would highly encourage you to get into the construction of high-speed internet. A lot of opportunities. Our community colleges are going to have those pathways. Often it's on-the-job training, and you get in maybe within the construction, but before you know it, then you are in a more technology-centered job, and then before you know it, you just move on up. So there are so many opportunities for careers in this area.
Yeah, listen, I was having a conversation. I may have mentioned this the last time we talked, but it's worthy of mentioning again, with a key entrepreneurial leader in the state who said that Mississippi is really on the cutting edge. When you think about broadband access, you think about the kind of companies that we're attracting. Governor Tate Reeves, if there's anything going to be written about Governor Tate Reeves in the future, it's going to be that he was an economic development governor. The work that he is doing with Bill Cork and that team at MDA and a broad range of people to bring economic development, not just economic development. We're talking about high tech economic development to Mississippi.
Yes.
The point that they made was that, wouldn't it be cool if Mississippi became sort of, you think about the Silicon Valley, and I spent a lot of time there, incidentally, because at one point in my career, the headquarters for my company was in Silicon Valley in San Jose. But you think about the Silicon Valley, think about the Silicon Delta in Mississippi. Why can't we?
Sure.
Why can't we be known for our high tech capabilities and the fact that we were able to revolutionize this state by broadband access and really tap into the intellectual capacity of the state in very smart ways? I mean, that's where we're headed, isn't it?
It is. We are headed that way, and our office is focused on deployment and getting this money out the door and getting these projects started just as soon as we can. We have some money that's about to roll out the door, another about $150 million worth of grant funding, while we work to get to the approvals we need from the feds to release this BEAD funding. So the $1.2 billion, we'll run the challenge process, get our map finalized, draw project areas around the state, let our providers, let the public, everybody kind of look at that, then adjust if needed. And then it's a competitive grant process. So we will take applications and score those applications. We'll have a lot of smart people to help us do that because we're a very small agency. So a lot of smart folks will do that with us, and then we'll award those contracts. So it's going to be a busy year at the broadband office.
Well, as I mentioned, the Mississippi legislature has been very supportive. They get it. They get this broadband piece. And
yes.
Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman and I have talked about it, and leaders in the House and the Senate side, we've talked about it. You had experience in the legislature. When we get into trying to figure out how to solve some of Mississippi's challenges, because we're a very, very rural state, that things like broadband access can leapfrog us in a lot of very positive ways. Do you have any any existing legislative or policy considerations that are still kind of being mulled over, and as it relates to any of this?
Um, so there is one issue really at a federal level. There's the Affordable Connectivity Program that has given low-income people a $30 a month subsidy for their broadband service, and we probably have 250,000 people, 250,000 people in Mississippi that take advantage of that. Has not been refunded, and pardon me. So that is that's something that we are concerned about. Unfortunately, we do have a pretty high poverty rate in Mississippi. Those people need to be connected, and so we're watching that very carefully.
So, Sally, when you come in the mornings, you've got the future you're thinking about. You've got assessing the current situation, so you can be really extraordinarily targeted on getting to areas that are underserved or not served. You got, like you pointed out, you got a small staff. Actually administering federal grants are not easy. I mean, there's a lot to say grace over. You got to cross the T's and dot the I's. You've got a lot to think about. I mean, take us through your day.
I have a day full of meetings with all of these different partners. Outside meetings. I had an engineering firm that wanted to meet with me yesterday, but I spend a lot of time with our accountants and auditors. We're planning for that big influx of BEAD funding. I spend time with our mapping contractor as we work on this map and prepare for the challenge process. Then we usually have some sort of community engagement meeting, interview to talk about it. Every day is different. I think that's what I like about this job. It is extremely busy. We have 5 different funding streams that we work with. So that's 5 different sets of rules that we have to know and be prepared for. So it's a fast-paced environment, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
You have to be a very organized person to do what you do. And I value people like you. We need people like you in the state who are okay with, mining the details or minding the details. Hey,
I have a great staff.
Say it again, sorry.
I have a great staff who help me. I may not be the most organized person, and they help me give that appearance.
But you got a good team. That's what it takes.
I do.
That's what it takes.
I do.
When we come back with Sally Doty, we'll continue our conversation in the final segment. We'll see you after this break. Well, welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. We have Sally Doty, who is responsible for, she said 5 different funding areas coming into this office, and broadband internet access that's happening all across Mississippi. It's called the Broadband Expansion Accessibility. And what's the M?
Of Mississippi.
Of Mississippi.
The office.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the things that Sally and I were chatting about during the break, actually, there's a couple of different places we can explore, and we'll end on this challenge initiative that she mentioned, because it's important for those of you who may not be served yet or underserved. We'll remind you the role that you can play in helping them identify you. But you spent some time in the legislature. That is really helpful to you when you think about what you're doing in this role now and how it all works and how all the pieces fit together. I mean, I bet you think often, man, I'm glad I had that experience.
I am. It is so helpful. And when I talk to other broadband directors around the nation and they're having some certain problem, I'm like, oh, why don't you just call so-and-so? Your state has a loggers association or whatever. They have no idea of some of the resources that really are available. And just being in the state Senate, I was there for 9 years, and it gave me such a broad view of the resources that we do have available, the state agencies. And then I just, when you're in the legislature, you get to know people, you know them very well, especially in the Senate, which is smaller. And so I have a contact in every area of the state. So if I have a question, we were looking at the map one day and had a question about Choctaw County. So I called my friend Joey Hood, who's in the house, and said, Joey, do you think this place really has services showing that they're served? I think he drove out there and tried to see if there was a house there for us, So you have those connections across the state that are just so helpful. We did the same thing with Senator DeBar in Leaksville. We had him to ask him some questions about some residences that were showing. So it's such a great resource that I've had to serve those years in the legislature. Never thought I would end up here. This was not in my career plan at all. But so glad that I've ended up here, and I think it's really been helpful for me to have had that background.
But when you think about sort of tapping into what's happening on the ground, certainly senators are going to bring that. But as you pointed out, there are larger areas, 50 of them, to work with. But the House of Representatives, those guys, they really get on the ground, and you can get tremendous feedback. And what a great resource to be able to tap into when you're wanting to understand what you're seeing in your analysis and comparing it to what they know that to exist in their world. That's pretty awesome to be able to tap into that.
It is. And, those folks have constituents who come to them all the time and say, hey, can you do something about my broadband? And so they call me, are you doing something about the broadband? And so we are doing that. And I've got a lot of those relationships. There are a lot of new members in the House this year, too. I've got a little work to do to make sure I kind of get to know some of those guys and women. So I'm looking forward to that. But a great resource. And especially as we move into this challenge process that you and I have talked about earlier, we hope those members of the legislature will share our information. We're going to have a ton of information out on social media. We are asking local governments to share that information as well. So you're going to be hearing more and more about how to participate in the challenge process. And what that does is it allows it really allows individuals for, the first time to say, hey, what this map says is incorrect. This is not right. So your location, your home, your residence can show up the right way on our map. And if it is unserved or underserved, there can be additional federal funding for a project in that area. But if you show up as served, can't do it. That's the rules of the grant. So our map, we have to run this challenge process and make sure our map is absolutely correct.
I think it's an ideal process because there's no way that you would be able to, from a perch, be able to know everything that's going on. You need participation from the ground. You need to hear from people who are in the trenches. Hey, what I will say is the next time we're together, as you guys are launching this challenge initiative, what we'll do is we'll have you back and we'll talk about it. And what we'll do is we'll get Cal for the SuperTalk TV, YouTube, and Facebook audience. We'll get Cal to actually bring up your website, and we'll put some addresses in. I'll find, we'll put my address in the Mississippi Delta, and I already know that it's served really well, but we'll do it anyway. And then we'll do some addresses across Mississippi, and we'll show people how to have access to the website, where to go on the website, how to, where you put your information in, what you get back, and how to participate in the process. And we'll actually do a kind of a walkthrough on the whole 9 yards.
That would be great. I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to write that down that you've made that offer.
Sure.
Okay?
We look forward to doing that. And
yes.
Cal has the ability to bring it up, and we will definitely do that. But listen, that's it for today. It's been great to catch up with you, Sally.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about high-speed internet in Mississippi. We're working hard on it.
You bet. This has been Sally Doty from the Office of Broadband Access and Accessibility in Mississippi. When we come back, we're not coming back. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.